Sony and Kojima Productions' Death Stranding Director's Cut is about to release, and I'm excited because A, this is actually my first time playing Death Stranding, and B, this is actually my first Kojima game. So, let's find out if Death Stranding Director's Cut is accessible. Before we begin this video, I want to encourage you, please hit the subscribe button so that you can be able to see when new videos come out. I do accessibility reviews, previews, and just a bunch of other fun stuff. It would really help me out and help out this channel if you do so. Thanks so much. Hi, I'm Steve Saylor. I'm blind, and if you're wondering how I'm able to play video games if I'm blind, if you take a look at the video here, and if the video's not there, click the link in the description down below to see exactly what I see when I'm playing video games. So today's video, we're gonna be talking about, obviously, Death Stranding Director's Cut. I'm gonna be looking at the game from my perspective as a first-time player and a first-time Kojima player, as well as kind of give my general thoughts, and then we'll talk about the accessibility in the game. I'm not gonna be talking about and comparing the original Death Stranding like I did for my Ghost of Tsushima review, because I didn't play Death Stranding, so I'm coming at this with completely fresh eyes. So without any further ado, let's jump right into my general thoughts. Death Stranding is weird, y'all. I mean, it's to be expected. I mean, Kojima is definitely known for his sort of weird and wacky kind of games, and I totally understand that. He has earned his right as a video game director auteur, and he was earned the right to be able to create a game that he wanted to create, and Death Stranding was it. You can definitely tell he has a message that he wants to be able to portray in his stories, and even without playing any of the Metal Gear games before, I at least know at least enough that essentially what you're in for when you're playing a Kojima game is you're in for a ride. And I think even going into it, I didn't think the story was as weird as I was expecting it to. Then again, I've only played maybe about like the first maybe 20 hours of the game, so who knows how crazy it gets later on. But I think actually I was able to follow along with pretty much what was happening. Sure, it was wild, it was wacky. I have no idea what the heck is even happening with some of the characters and some of the things, but I was at least able to follow along with the story. So I get that, like, I was in for a pretty crazy ride. It's kind of as the story is starting to unfold, I am starting to understand a little bit of it. And then also even going into it, because I had heard essentially that the expectations of this game is that it kind of is in a way a walking simulator to a certain degree, where you're delivering packages and cargo from one place to another. I was totally actually on board with that jumping in, and I wasn't really expecting more in regards to other gameplay, whether it was just more in combat or just more to it in that sense. So essentially I kind of was just ready to be kind of like, you know what, this is whatever I'm in for, this is going to be okay. And I actually did enjoy that aspect of it. What really kind of holds me back from really diving in and really enjoying it is the limitations when it comes to the accessibility. So let's talk about it. Now, again, in regards to accessibility, I don't know what was in the previous game before the director's cut, so I'm kind of coming at it from this perspective. I do know that in the original game, the text was considered pretty small. I did look at screenshots initially when it came out, and the text was pretty small to begin with. But in this one, there actually is an option to be able to increase the larger font size. The large text does help in some areas, but it's kind of hard to tell where the large text begins and the small text still remains. Essentially, there are a lot of menus and button prompts and stuff that essentially are just still really small, where I was constantly having to lean back and forth from the TV in order for me to be able to see. When you break it down, there are actually really two huge barriers for people with disabilities in this game, and that's going to affect motor disabilities and cognitive disabilities. Not to say that also deaf and hard of hearing have some issues as well. I mean, the subtitles do not have any background to them or any contrast in comparison to the environment, and there's no other settings to adjust them other than to turn the subtitles on or off. The large text does take into effect in here, but it is still an issue. What's interesting though is that even though there isn't a background to it, later on in the game when you do hear some dialogue that's over a menu, there is a kind of gradient that pops up from the bottom of the screen to add some contrast for those subtitles. So it's interesting as to why they decided to do that, but for that section, but not for the rest of the game. For blind and low vision users, there definitely is still some issues. Like I said, the aforementioned small text is pretty much everywhere, whether it's in the in-game menus or in any button prompts in the HUD. There is no menu narration pretty much throughout the entire game. There are sound effects that indicate that you've selected another menu item, but that's generally about it. There is no cursor-based navigation except in the map, so everything is done through the D-pad, but that's kind of a small price to pay. There also is very little contrast for certain menu items, especially those that are like, it's hard to see for any of the items that you can't select. It's just hard to kind of tell which is which, and the only times that the contrast helps is that there are these blinking sort of buttons to let you know which button to push next, but it doesn't sort of give you an indication audibly as to which button to press. But the main kind of issues with accessibility is definitely going to affect motor disabilities and cognitive disabilities more so than blind, low vision, and deaf and hard of hearing. Case in point, so we'll talk about the cognitive disabilities for a minute, because there is a lot happening in this game. Not only are you having to be able to memorize a lot of different subsystems of controls, where you're having to be able to remember, okay, if for this situation I have to hit square, then left trigger, then right trigger, or circle, and you have to be able to know that subsystem. But then if you have to use a different item or even a weapon, there's another subsystem that you have to be able to memorize and learn. And then also even in the in-game menus, there is just a lot that is on the screen that is hard to be able to kind of determine, okay, what is the most important information that I need right now, and what is sort of just there to kind of just give extra detail. There are certain things that kind of like the game kind of helps you along with being able to sort of like highlight specific things, especially when it comes to the deliveries that the items that you have to deliver in your cargo inventory. They do highlight which ones are the ones that you need to deliver, and you can be able to sort of adjust for like from there. So there are some subtle visual cues that help with that, but for the most part, I felt so lost in a lot of the sheer amount of menus that were there. I think once you get into it, like I said, I played about 20 hours, you start to kind of at least do remember where certain things are and how to be able to navigate it. But for someone who is playing this for the first time, who has a cognitive disability, this is going to be a huge barrier to kind of like to be able to try to adapt to if you want to keep playing this game. Another issue with this game is going to be definitely for motor disabilities. There is no remapping of controls, at least on the PS5 version, and the main sort of types of controls that you're going to have is especially when it comes to sort of when you're walking from one place to another to make your deliveries. You are crossing across different types of terrain, whether it's water or mountains or grass or rocks or even wind sometimes that you're having to try to battle. You're constantly having to try to be able to balance your cargo to make sure that pieces don't fall off. And the way they do that is you have to either hold the left trigger or hold the right trigger in order to be able to balance yourself out. Or you can be able to hold both triggers at the same time and to try to be able to steady yourself as you're walking forward, especially when you're walking through a river or walking uphill or downhill or just walking through a very windy area. So because of that constant pressure to be able to kind of keep pushing the L2 and R2 button and having to hold them in order to be able to balance yourself without things falling off, that is going to be a huge barrier for those with motor disabilities to have to constantly be pushing those buttons all the time. I should mention though that even though the first couple hours you are going to have to walk to your destinations more, so yes, you will have to keep pushing L2 and R2 to balance the cargo on Sam. At some point you do unlock vehicles and other things to help carry your cargo for you, so you don't have to balance as much on Sam's back or on Sam's body in general, so you don't have to push those two buttons as well. It's just going to take a little bit for you to be able to get to that point, and then it becomes a little bit easier as you go. But the problem is that those same vehicles and those same things that like little robots that actually will hold things for you, they will start to degrade as you go, especially on a longer journey. So you're gonna need to be able to have materials to be able to help you keep those vehicles maintained while you're trying to be able to get to your next destination. And as well as there are a lot of subsystems that utilizes multiple different types of, like there's like each button has multiple multiple uses depending on which subsystem you're in. So for example, this is a minor sort of spoiler in regards to the game, but there are these, I'll use this item as an example. So you at a certain point in the game, you get these sort of these repair canisters that are essentially kind of like this spray paint that sort of like repairs pieces of cargo that you have, especially for if you're having to deliver stuff. You get more points and more like experience if you bring back a piece of cargo with less than 50% damage. So you're constantly having to be able to manage that. If for whatever reason something falls and you have to pick it up again, you can be able to use these canisters to repair it. So the way you have to be able to use that item is you have to push and hold right on the D-pad. You have to use the thumbstick to select the canister, but if it's not on the first page of that sort of item wheel select, you have to push the R3 button down to move to the next page, and then you can be able to use the thumbstick to select the canister that's there. Then you let go, as long as it's there, then you let go of both the thumbstick and the right D-pad, and then you basically have to push the L2 button in order to be able to hold the canister in your hand to ready it, and then you can either push square to be able to hold the canister to your back so that you can be able to spray the canisters that are on your backpack thing that you have, or you can basically not hit square and then you can basically just spray whatever is in front of you or in the direction where Sam is facing. That is just for one item. And that is kind of almost the same throughout everything and everything you interact with. There are multiple button presses for pretty much everything that you do in the game, whether it's interacting with a terminal or with a vehicle or stuff that you interact with in the world, like picking up lost cargo. You have to decide, okay, if I pick this up, I'm gonna put it on my back, and then I have to go into the sub menu to be able to like, okay, am I properly balanced? There is a thing in there once you balance it that you can be able to hit the triangle button and it would sort of auto balance it for you, which is a nice touch, but there's just so much happening all at once that you can basically decide, okay, I want to hold something in my left hand, I want to hold something on my right hand, I want to be able to hold something on my back, I want to hold something on my leg or on my belt. There's just so much happening. It's just almost completely overwhelming for like you're having to be able to use all of the controller multiple times over generally at the same time. And then when you get into a situation where you have to be able to go into do something really quickly, whether it's running away from a BT if you weren't stealth enough, or you're having to be able to combat the BTs once you get like weapons and things to be able to combat them, then you're having to be able to do the same thing. You have to select that in your item wheel, and then you have to be able to hold L2 to be able to like to use the weapon or throw something. Like you're having to be able to do this really quickly almost all the time. I think the one issue or the one kind of barrier I had was like I was generally doing okay throughout the first 20 hours, but then once I kind of had a one longer run mission, I essentially kept running into BT areas, and because I had something that could be able to combat the BTs, and I'm trying to be able to get to this particular port or this particular city really quick, as fast as I can, I was also using my motorbike. And now the BTs are there. They're already found me. I'm having to get off my bike and try to be able to there's so much happening, and I died probably about twice trying to be able to do that mission. And by the time that I had made it to the city that I was supposed to deliver the items to, I found out that I had dropped one item that I completely either missed in either the attacks of the BTs or it just disappeared, and I had no idea what the heck happened. So now I have to go all the way back to where I started from, grab the missing item, and then go all the way back to where I was, and it's just extending that time. That's the only real extreme frustrating situation I ran into, but it's just a lot, and I can only imagine how much of a barrier it is for those with disabilities that this would affect. So now the benefits of playing this on a PS5, there definitely is, I could tell already, there is a massive sort of graphic upgrade into this. The game looks absolutely gorgeous from the details that is in every single character. And there's a lot of close-up shots of characters in this, and you can see the pores that are on their faces. The Kojima definitely went into a lot of detail into making sure that not only the actors look the same as they are in real life, but then it's just the amount of detail in the world itself. It just looks looks gorgeous. Now, playing with the DualSense controller, there are two things that obviously stick out to me that are really cool. Obviously, the haptic feedback is really great in this game. You do start to kind of get to feel when sort of danger is around you. You get to kind of feel the effects of as you're walking or as you're sort of riding in the your vehicle, or even when the beat, like when your sort of BB is kind of is either cooing, you can be able to hear that in the DualSense, which is really neat. I think the adaptive triggers, while great in concept for this, obviously with because you're having to be able to hit L2 and R2 so often, I actually had to turn off the adaptive triggers just so that I can be able to keep playing. It's not that I have any particular dexterity issues with my hands to be able to hit it. It's just because you're constantly pushing and holding those buttons, it was just a challenge just to try to keep pushing that all the time, and I can definitely see where that can fatigue some players. The 3D audio that is in the game that utilizes the 3D audio pulse headset that PlayStation offers is really great. Being able to sort of stop in one place, scan around you, and be able to know where a BT is at any given spot or in 360 degree space is really great. It definitely helps when you're trying to be able to sneak past a BT. There was one particular sort of intense encounter that I was able to go past just by doing it really stealthily and slowly, which was great. And the 3D audio really kind of added to that effect and that immersion, which was really great. So as far as an upgrade to the PS5 from the PS4, without having to play the PS4 version, I definitely would recommend this game if you have a PS5 and you want to be able to try this out for yourself. Now, my overall thoughts on this game, I like it. I like the story. I don't mind the walking simulator. I am intrigued to see like how crazy and weird that this game is gonna get as I keep playing. But as far as from an accessibility standpoint, it is hard to be able to recommend to new players, especially for the director's cut, hoping that there would be new accessibility options or new added benefits to the gameplay design. Unfortunately, it just really kind of is really just an upgraded version of the original with some minor tweaks in the options and settings. So if there's definitely something there that can help you out, then yes, I would say give it a try for yourself. But if you were concerned about the original game and hearing more about it, and over the past year, and you were concerned whether or not, or you were hoping that the director's cut will be beneficial to you and actually be able to help you be able to play, I would probably say not so much. So that is it for me. I want to thank you for watching. If you have any questions or comments, please hit me up on Twitter at Steve Saylor, or comment down below any questions or comments you have. If you want to be able to see more of my videos, please hit the subscribe button. And if you like this video, if you like this review, please give it a thumbs up, because that definitely helps with the algorithm on YouTube, and it would kind of help get these reviews out to more people on YouTube who are curious about accessibility in this game. So I would really appreciate it. And that's it. So thank you so much for watching. As always, I remain obediently yours. Bye.